Hello and welcome back to our Everyday Watercolor Journal Ideas series. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. So we're on page 3 of our new journal. We did, we did simple flowers and roses, and now we're going to do another commenter's recommendation or suggestion. Another journal ago, a few videos back, we did a landscape with trees in it, with pine trees in it. And I know that pine trees can be challenging for some. So I didn't really go over instruction in that video of how I made the trees themselves. So we're going to talk just about trees today, just pine trees specifically. And then maybe I'll do another video later on about some other types of trees that we could add as well. So I have 3 brushes with me here today. These 3 brushes are 3 different types of brushes that I like to use to create pine trees, depending on the look and feel I'm going for or the mood I'm in. And I find students feel successful with one of these over the other. Some prefer this flat one. So this is a 1/2 inch square or flat wash brush. This is a round brush. This is a size 8 round brush with a nice fine tip on it. It doesn't look that way yet, but when you get it wet, I promise, it has a nice fine point on it. And then also this is a size 2 liner brush or a rigger brush that you could also use, which is just a much smaller, finer round tip brush. So these 3 brushes we're going to make trees with, and then you can figure out which one works best for you, or depending on what types of brushes you have. All right, so let's first talk about the construction of a tree, and then we're just going to practice. This is a great journal exercise where you can just make a ton of trees over and over and over again and just practice before you start putting them into your final piece. So a tree has a trunk. Well, where am I going to put this on the page? Okay. A tree has a trunk down the center, and then from that trunk there are branches that go out. However, a tree is 3-dimensional, so it's rounded. Some of the branches are coming straight at us or going straight away from us, and some are going to the side and kind of every point along the cylindrical kind of area that goes around a tree. How do we do that in a simple way? So we're not doing, again, like a hyper-realistic in a forest tree. These are often used as additions to landscapes or silhouettes. Let me see if I have anything sitting over here. Oh, where's the journal we did? I'll pull out that other piece. So what you don't want to get caught up in, all right, so here are some trees kind of sitting out in the wild. So we often, at this stage, especially if you're a beginner, you're just adding them to landscapes. What a lot of folks do when they first start trees is they think representationally of a tree, and they just start to put branches on either side of the trunk like this and call that done. So they don't cross the plane of the trunk itself. They just have the branches kind of affixed to the trunk and going outward. Well, branches come at us, and what would that look like? If a branch is coming straight at you, you'd only see like the tip of it. It's actually going to be just a mark on the trunk. So when you're doing a tree, you want your brush to cross the line of the trunk when we're building it, because some of it is coming out at us, some of it is going away from us. So around the trunk is going to be the most dense part, and then we will see little bits of extra areas around the edges or these pointy parts out along the sides. So if I were drawing this, we're going to have lots of denseness here where there are branches coming all different directions. And then, yeah, you're going to see the little edges kind of poking out. There's going to be some white space in between. So hopefully that drawing demonstration doesn't like mess you up later on. Now I feel like I need to finish it. So I'll just keep talking while I finish this. And what I'm doing with my pencil right now, is actually kind of what I do with my brush, except I'm leaving it on the page the whole time. With my brush, I pick it up and kind of move it. But basically, I bounce back and forth with my brush and the paint straight across that center trunk line, wherever that might be. And I'm just getting narrower and narrower towards the top or wider and wider towards the bottom. And what else? What other little tidbits could I tell you? I will drop in more paint towards the center while it's wet using the wet on wet technique. And I feel like there's another point in here. I really like this little line drawing of a tree. But yeah, all right, so let's just, oh, I know what I want to say. So these branches, you can see they all angle down slightly. So they're all kind of going this way. You can also make a tree where your boughs angle upwards or are really straight across back and forth. So keep that in mind as well. I don't know what I used in this one. Those are downwards. I think these are downwards as well. I tend to do downwards. Oh no, these are upwards. So you can see these go in an upward fashion. And both are correct. There are trees that grow like this, upward and downward. Okay, let's get to painting. All right, so I'm going to start with the traditional round brush with a nice point on it. I guess I'll just use green. I'll use this sap green here. Well, this is sap green and a little bit of phthalo blue, so giving it that real kind of pine feel to it. So oftentimes, like, you're gonna go do your journal and you just don't know what to paint, and you're just stuck for like ideas of like a cohesive image or thing. Journals are great places to just do repetitive practice. So trees, flowers, little objects, like if there's an object you want to paint, just paint it multiple times. All right, so let's start with our first tree. So I'm going to start with the point of my brush. You can make a center line. You don't have to. You can just start without one. So we'll do one with a center line. So I've made my center line. And now I'm just going to start from the top, kind of zigzagging using the tip of my brush. But you can see I'm like spending a lot more time towards the center of the trunk, like just scrubbing in some different shapes and patterns there, letting some areas get thick, but I'm leaving white space, otherwise it's going to be one big blob. You can even skip a whole section if you want and just let the tree be like really bare in there. It happens. And your first pass doesn't have to be it. You can kind of get down to the bottom and be like, okay, what do I need to fill in? I don't like this bare space. Let's put a little bit more detail in there. And then you can also go in back to the center, just drop in some color, some highly concentrated paint to create different lights and darks, shadows. You do just want to make sure the top of your tree is pointy, comes to a point. The great thing about the top of a tree, as long as it's within reason, but if it doesn't get pointy enough, it's a little blunt at the top, you just add a little bit more tree on the top to make that little fine point. And you can go all the way down to the ground, or you can have more of a trunk. So there's tree number one, and these branches are somewhat angled down. These are a little bit straight across, but we'll get into other shapes in a moment. You can also do your trunk in brown if you prefer to do that first. In brown, you can do that. So let's do, I'm going to switch my brush. I'm going to use the flat wash. I'm going to start with a brown. I have some burnt umber over here. Or sorry, raw umber. I always call it burnt umber. Burnt sienna, raw umber are in my palette. All right, so with my flat brush, I'm just going to make a trunk. There you go. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. It's totally fine if it's all kind of messed up a little bit. Just thin. And then I'm going to pick up my green And I'm going to really load my brush. But you want your brush to be nice and flat. I don't know if you see that, but it's all kind of pressed together. And I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to start with a really severe angle. So remember how we were talking about you want that top to be pointed? So I'm going to start with a really severe angle, and I might not even touch the whole brush to the page, but can you see how those little lines are there? This one is definitely going to be some down branches using this type of brush, or severely up. You can make them across. And I'm just going to dab the oh my gosh, my words are escaping me. It's early in the morning right now. I'm just going to dab the tip of the brush, the edge of the brush across. And I am, if you see, I'm kind of swooping back and forth. So the angle of my brush is changing like this way and this way as I rock across it. Okay. Because this side, they go down this way. In the center, they kind of cross the line and are a little more parallel to the ground. And then they kind of come down the other way. So there, similar looking, but completely different in terms of similar looking in terms of shape, and they're both down branches. We've gone across that center line. You can go in and add, again, wet on wet, some additional little darker areas. So that's the flat brush. And this one we're going to do up branches, I think. And I'm not going to put a center line in. I'm going to go based on just my imagination of where the center line would be. So this is a liner brush, or you could use a rigger, fine liner. And so your marks are going to be really tiny, and you're going to have to make a lot of them. So if I start at the top of my tree, okay, I'm going to make that's my point. And now I'm just going to start building out from an imaginary center line, and my branches are pointing upwards, as you can see. And you're kind of giving yourself a line as you go. This one does take a lot more mark making with the brush itself, so it might be slower and you might spend more time in one area. I'm going to skip a little bit of space here because I am going to put in a trunk afterwards, and I just want you to see pretty clearly how that is going to happen. And your trees can be, some of them can be super tall. Let's make this one super tall and thin. Like they can be slightly wider at the bottom, but generally like relatively the same width almost all the way down. So really tall and skinny. They can also be really short and plump and round, like a little Douglas fir tree, like a little Christmas tree that you might bring in to your house. So there's lots of options for variation of the type of tree for the type of situation you're in. So I'm just going to keep going down. So again, this one's going to be taller. I'm going to come down to, I don't want to take forever though. I'm trying to work a little more quickly. And you can see I'm just like scribbling across back and forth with this brush. All right, so now we get down to here, and I'm going to take some of that brown, and I am going to find a few spots in here where it's pretty bare. I'm not going to just draw a straight line all the way down like I did with the first kind of leading lines. They end up getting covered up anyway. I'm just going to put in a few where it's like poking through. There we go. And then if you need to add more towards the center, and I let that brown kind of bleed into some of the green that's already there. That's great. It kind of makes it all cohesive. So there's a nice tall pine. So made with 3 different style brushes. We did the liner, the square flat wash brush, and then a round brush. And then once you kind of decide what shape you're going to do, or if you're going to practice all the shapes or all the brushes, then you just fill your page with different trees. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to fill my page with different trees. You can play with colors. They don't all have to be the same color. You can make pink trees and purple trees and black silhouetted trees. It's all up to you. You can make really light, misty trees, or even here, let's do this one before I speed things up. I'm going to speed things up to let you watch me kind of fill the whole journal. So at the top, it's going to be kind of darker. Boop, 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 boop. I'm doing this quickly. So these are up branches with my round brush. I'm going to rinse off my brush a bit. So there's still a little paint on there and water. As I go down, my tree is going to get lighter. Rinse it off again. And lighter. And kind of all together. And then depending on what it's built into, now you have like a misty area that kind of falls into a forest. It's just popping up. So you're just seeing the details up top. And you saw this in this one where I did these in silhouette. Hold on. I should have just have this open to the page. At the bottom, they kind of blend out into the forest area down below. You can have different parts of the tree, lighter or darker, depending on the atmosphere. It could just be the center, but you actually see a dark part of the bottom. I know, I'm getting into all kinds of other ways to put in trees. So let's just practice trees in general. And go ahead and watch me fill this page with lots of practice trees. All right, there we go. We have made lots and lots of trees in lots of different ways with different brushes and different techniques. Don't be afraid. What I also want to tell you is when you're painting trees together, don't be afraid to overlap them or even mix styles. So that's what I did here. But don't be afraid to like literally paint one over top of the other or let the branches overlap. Don't feel like you have to put them like little soldiers all lined up next to each other, just really close to each other, but not touching. Let them overlap. Forests are built with overlapping trees, I promise you. Okay, that's all I have for trees. Hopefully you found this helpful and you'll be able to incorporate them into many of your different landscape projects and pieces. I'm Shayna Cersei. Don't forget to check out the description for links to all of the supplies and materials I use, as well as my social media, my Studio Crew Classroom, and feel free to leave a comment. I always love to hear from y'all, whether this was helpful, not helpful, just a nice relaxing exercise to do. All right, happy painting, y'all. See you next time.